And for those online, I apologize for just using a static picture. It's a much prettier picture than if I was to be live in front of you.
I have a couple more people joining the meeting.
I would say so. Ashley joined. You got in early. You're on mute.
Okay. Looks like I've got the recording going and the live on YouTube is going.
Excellent. Well, hopefully this will work out. Everyone, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you would take the time to please stand and we'll do a flag salute. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so with that, welcome everyone to the delayed September council meeting. I apologize we had to delay it last week. Obviously, we were in the midst of the fires and everything else, and we felt it best to postpone it for 1 week, and I'm very happy we did. With that, Judy, Vicky, do you want to do a roll call?
Actually, I've been doing a roll call as they've been entering, so I think we're good on the roll call.
Excellent. Counselors, before we move on, there is a list of topics in the consent agenda. Is there any desire to move any consent agenda out for regular discussion? If I hear silence, I'm just going to assume there is none. So just double checking.
None from
Dodge, nothing.
All right. We do have Ashley online. So Vicky, Ashley, originally we were planning on flipping around a topic where we were going to have the discussion regarding the property tax exemption request go after the public hearings. But Ashley, I see that you are on now. Are we able to just go ahead and go along with the regular agenda at that point then?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be my preference.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and do that so we can then excuse Ashley.
Thanks.
So,
Are you ready for me now, Mayor?
yes, go ahead. Let me just first introduce the topic real quick so everyone knows. There is on the agenda, there's a block. Wait, actually, my bad. Let me go through first. I did miss one. That's the proclamation declaring September a National Preparedness Month. Let me walk through that very quickly. Truly, I do apologize on that. So we do have a proclamation declaring September as a National Preparedness Month. If you will all just bear with me, what I will do quickly is read through the proclamation. If there's any questions, we can have the discussion within council at that point in time. Otherwise, we will move on then to the discussion regarding the property tax exemption. So proclamation. This matter came before the Hubbard City Council at its regularly scheduled meeting of September 8th. I guess we'll have to update that now to the 15th, 2020, to proclaim September as National Preparedness Month. Whereas each September is recognized as National Preparedness Month, and whereas Oregonians have witnessed and experienced natural disasters in our own community, and whereas every community member can take active steps to protect their families and neighbors from natural and man-made disasters, and whereas every family and business in Hubbard is encouraged to take active steps to be financially secure after a disaster, and whereas every community member is encouraged to make sure they are properly insured against fire, flood, earthquakes, and storms, and whereas every community member is encouraged to create a home inventory to include as part of their disaster preparedness kit. Therefore, I, Charles Rostasil, Mayor of the City of Hubbard, do hereby declare the month of September 2020 and do hereby proclaim September 2020 as September as National Preparedness Month. It did not read quite as smooth as I was expecting it to read. Vicky, with that, the proclamation is done. I'm not sure if you really need much of a discussion on this unless there's any concern from our council members. I have a no from Councilor Rodriguez.
No from Dodge.
And it looks like a no from Thomas and
None from Prinsloo.
All right, then we will call that one done. And Vicky, I will try to sneak in tomorrow to give this one a signature. Now, Back to our regularly scheduled one. Sorry about that. Discussion regarding property tax exemption. So Ashley, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Okay. Greetings, Hubbard City Council. My name is Ashley Driscoll. I think I've met most of you at this point. I'm from the City Attorney's Office. So you have an email in the packet from one of my partners, Chad Jacobs, answering a question about the property tax exemption for nonprofits doing low-income housing. I think the email from Chad is pretty thorough, so I'm just going to hit on some of the main points. So first of all, this is not a mandatory program. This is a property tax exemption, again, for low-income housing, and the city can decide how that's defined. So the city can make the policy choice that it wants to, encourage low-income housing within your community by enacting this property tax exemption, but it is in no way mandatory. However, if you were going to do it, the steps would be that we would prepare an ordinance and we would bring back the ordinance for your review. And one of the issues that the city council will want to discuss is how you would want to discuss low income, or how you would like to define low income individuals or low income households. The statute provides two different ways to define it. First is 60% of the median income in the area for the first year and every year after that. And then the second one is 60% for the first year, which would be the median income of the area, and then raise that to 80% in years after that. And in looking into this issue and just thinking about some questions that the city council might have on this topic, my question was, why are we given these two options? Why are these, what are communities choosing? And what I heard is that oftentimes, 60% of the median income for the area, is low income housing. But once somebody gets low income housing, they stabilize. And when you're stabilized, oftentimes your income will go up. And so not wanting to create a situation where, you meet this criteria of being at 60%, then you get stable housing, you're able to find a stable job, things start improving, and then all of a sudden, you're no longer qualified for the housing that you're in. So I wanted to bring those 2 points up. And Vicki, I know that there was an applicant or somebody looked into this. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how it came to your office?
Yes, it was emailed to me. Also a letter was presented to the council and myself in regards to this. I did post that, and it's also in the new packet from, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is it Carol? I believe she is on this Zoom. If you had any questions for her.
Okay. So council, do you have any additional questions for me or Vicki, or would you like to hear from Carol?
I'd like to hear from Carol for sure. I think she was the one who authored the initial letter, if I'm not mistaken, in regards to the mobile home estates.
I don't.
Or while she comes around, I do have a question, and this might be then regarding or going back towards, at this point, Judy and Vicki. Currently, we don't have any property tax exemptions that I'm aware of within the city. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct.
And on these, and Ashley, you can maybe answer this one. Who is at that point then responsible for the property taxes that are not from the city? Is this just for city imposed property taxes, or is this something that would include school taxes and state taxes, et cetera?
So the city's only making a decision for the city. Maybe Carol can answer more clearly. I see that she is no longer muted. I would assume that they could also make the same request to the county or any other government entity, but definitely tonight, we are only making the decision for the city. Or I'm sorry, considering this program.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Hi, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you so much for having me speak. I'm from the law firm of Elaine Powell, and not an expert in this by any stretch of the imagination, so please don't think I am. We represent Caritas, which is a 501c3 organization from, they actually are based out of California. And this is their first venture into Oregon. They are buying 7 mobile home parks or manufactured home facilities. And a part of their goal, all of their funding is through public financing bonds. And so their goal is to always keep the cost of housing affordable for all of the residents in their properties that they buy. They also, as Vicky knows from the letter that John Woolley sent to the council and the mayor, they're very much involved in fostering and benefiting the community through education programs, scholarship programs, community development, and that sort of thing. And they've been very successful in California at promoting the ideals of their corporation. With regards to the property tax exemption, the way it's been explained to me from the Marion County Assessor's Office and well, basically Marion County said this is, if you read the statute, it's based on the local ordinance has control. And so I first went to Marion County, and they are actually working on their own application process for me for some mobile home parks that the client is acquiring in Marion County, which I realize doesn't affect, I realize you're in Clackamas County. And then I started talking to the Clackamas County folks, and they said, no, this is City of Hubbard. So that brought me with an email inquiry to the city's website, and that's how I met Vicky and why I'm here tonight. So it definitely is a local jurisdiction based on the statute that can make the decision of whether or not they want to provide the property tax exemption. And so that's why we're here tonight. We're asking you to consider it. There is no, I think to respond to something that Vicky said, it's just an exemption. It has, so it, and I'm sorry, I don't know the answer whether or not it just affects the taxes that the City of Hubbard collects for its infrastructure, schools, police, whatever, or if the City of Hubbard allows the exemption, would that mean then that Clackamas County, if there are other things that Clackamas County collects on in these property tax statements, would the bifurcation of taxes, is that is that affected by the property tax exemption? And I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I do appreciate you providing input, and I think you got that as reverse. We're actually in Marion County. So it might be, I think you were right on. I think you just probably flipped the 2 counties.
Oh, I apologize, Mayor. Yeah, we have, anyway, the client
No
is
apologies needed, no apologies needed.
the client's buying 7 mobile home parks, and yeah, it's COVID world. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
I don't, it's hard to know what's ups and downs sometimes.
So Judy, back to you. Do we understand the financial impact of the city on this one?
Actually, no, because I haven't, sorry, Mayor. Actually, no, I need to research that more. I haven't been involved. Vicky's been mostly involved in this.
Okay.
So between Vicky and the attorney's office, I'm just being brought up to speed on this right now.
If memory serves me correctly, I want to say that the property taxes for both parks were about $15,000 a year. But that's, I didn't, quite frankly, I didn't know I was going to be talking tonight, so I don't have any notes in front of me. But that's what I recall from looking at the preliminary title commitments for these 2 properties. So I think it's about $15,000.
So one question that I have for you, Carol, is are you looking to get pass-through grants from the county on this because you are a 501c3?
No, my understanding from reading the statute is that it's an exemption.
Okay, I was just checking on that.
Okay, since I've been talking a lot, I'm going to go through the list here. Councilor Rodriguez, do you have any questions on this one? Any follow-up questions that you would like to see brought up?
Well, you know, to buy a manufactured home park, and I understand that sometimes they're a little lower income persons. I would wonder what would stop this new corporation from deciding to sell if they find this isn't financially feasible for them, and then the next buyer raises the rent up high or something like that. I also understand that, you know, this particular park or these two parks here in Hubbard still will be impacting our city services. And then at what point do we say, my question might be, you know, okay, we start granting more and more and more, and then you got apartment complexes, you have other manufactured home parks. That's my concern with kind of opening up maybe Pandora's box on this. That's kind of what my concern is on this.
Those are all excellent concerns. Councilor Dodge, what's your thoughts? I'm just going to go through the list on here of councilors.
I have a lot of the same ones that James had with concerns. Because our city also, we don't have a lot of ancillary funds or different things that are coming in. So looking at our budget and everything else, how does this affect the bottom line of our budget and what does that do to it? If we're giving exemptions out. So looking at that bottom line as well. I know we were looking at that grant at one point. I think it was, and Vicky can correct me, or Judy, and where we were in that 3-year thing, and that had to do with low income housing. And so does it conflict with that as well? So those were some of my concerns.
Michelle, I apologize. I'm not familiar with that grant. So it's possible that we may just need to respond to you in writing after the meeting.
Oh yeah, we wouldn't expect you to have answers right away. No. Let me see, Councilor Thomas, I saw your picture on here somewhere. Where'd you go?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. You shifted on the screen. You're over to the other side.
I did. I guess my question is, where are the owners of this company? Where are they located?
California.
Okay. So I think that would raise some concerns for me. We're giving tax exemptions in Oregon to a company that resides in California. You know, I think I would have some reservations about that personally. That's probably the main top of mind thing for me.
Okay, Councilor Prenslow, and I'm not asking you last because of any particular order, but your name's just on the bottom of the list, so.
I'm quite used to that. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that, Robert.
That's okay. So my main concern is if the city were to actually approve the reduction or exemption from tax on these properties, what is the owner planning to do to benefit the people that live in that facility?
That one I think we can answer in part with the letter that John Woolley, who is the CFO from Caritas, submitted to the mayor and the council and Ms. Nogel. Their goal is to maintain rents at a rate that is affordable for lower income persons, but also to foster a sense of community within the mobile home parks by offering activities and things that, I mean, I think one of the examples that John gave in his letter was like neighborhood barbecues, that kind of thing, where the to get the community together, so people get to know one another and care about their neighbors. That they are, like I said, it's their whole goal is to maintain affordable housing for people. They have stressed in their letter to the council that they're in this for the long haul. To respond to Councilor Aldrich's concern, this is not a short-term investment for them, and part of how they maintain the affordability of housing is to get breaks where they can, and they are getting these breaks in California, whether that makes any difference to people's opinions or not. But they are getting property tax relief in California. And then, so the money that they are collecting from the rents of the residents then can go to pay the debt relief on these public financing bonds, which is their sole source of financing for this acquisition. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And if not, please, like I said, we are happy to respond in writing to other questions or concerns.
Right. And I do remember that being mentioned in your letter as well when I read through it. There was no guidelines on what specifically affordable means, but you did outline the benefits that you were trying to put in there. I will acknowledge that.
I had one question, Mayor. Carol, on that, is there any age restrictions? Because I know like we have a senior program for our utility billings. So this program doesn't restrict on age, it just goes by income?
Judy, yes, that's correct. That's my understanding. There is,
Okay.
it's not a senior housing, it's affordable housing.
Okay.
Okay, so let me gather.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Mayor, if I may make one other comment. So according to the statute, the city council can make other restrictions on participating as long as those don't conflict with other areas of the statute. So if the council wanted to explore, some additional requirements, if you're interested in this program, we could look at those as well. So I just wanted to put that out on the table.
Okay. I think the biggest thing, and I heard it from almost every counselor, and it was one of the reasons I asked the first question about the financial impact of the city. And that is my first request, I think, before we make any action on this, is we do need to understand any potential impact to the city. When we're talking about $2,000 to us, that is a big deal, because $2,000 to us is quite a lot when we have to talk about $200 just to put in some crossing flags. So there is a financial impact to this city. So my ask is a few things. Number one, Judy, could we ask from your staff for you to provide what the financial implication would be to our city? I don't think the 15,000 is all our taxes. I just need to understand from the liability that we would assume as a city, what is that amount? I think we need to have that to make an educated decision.
I agree.
Ashley, and I'm not sure I necessarily heard this or not. My other fear, though, is if we were to, and this is all pontificating, I'm not signaling support for or against, but what I'm asking is the other taxes, school excise tax, state taxes, county taxes, everything else, the fire district taxes, etc. If we were to put something like this in place, do we find ourselves liable to pay those? Or will those taxes still be required to be paid? I don't necessarily know if I have an answer on that.
Sorry, Mayor, if I didn't answer that. We are only talking about taxes that the city levels. We don't have the authority to exempt other governmental entities' taxes. So we would just report to the county tax assessor that we are not imposing these taxes, and those taxes would just not be paid for the city of Hubbard. It wouldn't have any effect on those other local governments. We wouldn't be liable for them or anything of that nature.
Or the state. Okay. Because it goes back to Carol, they might not actually see the realization of the savings that they think there might be there, because I don't believe Hubbard's actual property taxes are the ones that are driving most of the costs in these bills. But I would still like to understand what our financial impact is from Judy.
I agree. I think I'm missing part, a piece of this information. So I'll get with Vicky on that.
That'd be
And-
perfectly fine, and you can send it out then in email to the council.
Okay,
May I
great.
ask one more question?
Yeah,
So, because I don't know necessarily how mobile home parks work, and we're talking about a property tax for that. Do each of the individuals that own a home within the mobile home park also pay a property tax? Or is that covered by the entity that owns the park?
That is typically covered by the property owner, and since they aren't individual lots, it's all one lot, the property owner would pay the taxes on that.
It's my understanding that manufactured homes are personal property, not real property. And so I agree with Vicky's assessment of that.
so to follow up on that question, Michelle, then is the tax exemption for the land that is being rented to the individuals, and then the individuals will still have to pay taxes on their dwellings that sit on the land that they're renting, or? And that
I'm
might be a
not-
convoluted question, but
I don't know that answer. That would
Okay.
be a tax assessor question.
Right.
Maybe
Okay.
Judy would be able to find that information out when she finds out the look or how much the impact will be.
right.
Yeah, I can help follow up on that question, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Judy. Okay, so why don't we, for now, table the discussion until we can get some additional input from Judy, at least on the financial implications of this type of program that would have on our city. And then we can pick up the topic with a little bit more information then next month, which would be 3 weeks away, actually. Before I close out this topic, I just want to go through real quick one more time. Is there any additional questions that any of the counselors would like to ask or follow up on?
No additional questions from Counselor Aldridge.
Okay, Tyler saying no. Michelle?
I guess my question would be, A, does the company already own the property that we're talking about, or are they looking to purchase it?
Michelle, I can answer that one. We are under purchase contract right now. The properties are
So-
currently owned by a gentleman named Martin Fleck, who owns each of the mobile home parks through different LLCs.
Okay. And if we decided, because we don't know what we were deciding yet, but is the company looking to purchase the property regardless of what the outcome is decided? Do we know that?
Yes, I believe that's a true statement.
Okay, excellent. And Counselor Prinsloo, do you have any closing remarks and for Carol and with this topic?
No, I have no further questions and no other remarks at this time.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. Carol, I thank you very much for coming in and spending time and not really being prepared to speak. You did a well job, so I appreciate that as well.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that you and the council's time. And Vicky has my email address. And if anybody, councilors, members have any other questions, of course, we're more than happy to respond in writing. And Judy, I'm very interested to find out hear what you figure out vis-a-vis the impact on the city of Hubbard versus the taxes that go to the county versus the city, because that's not something that I'm aware, that I know about. So anyway, I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you very much. And I am going to say goodbye.
All right,
Thank you. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Be safe, everyone.
Counselors, if I might ask, if you have further questions for Carol on this issue, please coordinate them through Vicky so we can make sure we don't spam poor Carol and or those individuals with questions. I'd like to make sure we track them all, just so we have a coordinated understanding to share that information. And Vicky, I'm kind of speaking up for you there, but I'm assuming it's okay to coordinate the questions through you.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, the agenda topic I'm sure most of us have all been waiting for. Public hearings continue from June 9th, 2020. City of Hubbard Sewer Reimbursement District, Coleman Estates Subdivision. Matt Wallington, Civil West Engineering. So this is a continuation of the meeting we had, or the open meeting that we opened, gee whiz, yeah, back in June. For the last 2 months, this meeting has been postponed. We requested some additional information. I believe all of you counselors in your packet have the latest information. With this, Vicky, help me on process here so I don't step out of it. We are still in an open session, but in the previous open session, we had closed public comment. What is the exact process to continue this at this point to make sure I do not do something incorrect?
Actually, you didn't close the public comment. You just continued it.
Just
to-
continued it. Okay.
Yes, and I also wanted to mention that the packet that was provided to you on the 8th, there was additional forms that were attached, and then in the new packet for tonight that's online, it was combined in the packet. So one of those other items was it's labeled Coleman Estates from Multitech. It was some items that was requested that Matt had mentioned in his report, and the other one was a resolution.
So I have a couple of questions, and I have been not only giving this quite a lot of thought, but it has weighed on me quite a lot for the last few months. My first question is, I understand, because obviously I sit on the council, about the sewer reimbursement district and what the purpose was. My first question, and I know we don't have Ashley on here anymore, which probably would have been good to have her on here still for this. How, Vicky, maybe you can help me with this. How can a city body, the City Council of Hubbard, establish a district with properties or tax lots outside of our jurisdiction? That would be my first question. Has it been done before? Does the city government have the authority to establish jurisdiction over property that is actually not within our urban growth boundary?
That's a good question, and I wish that Ashley was still on. I believe I believe in a previous email that was addressed, but I don't have that in front of me, so I'm unable to answer that question for you.
Okay. That would have been my first question, and I realized it after Ashley left that I was going to have that question. I also noticed the numbers of changing, right? So these are just my takeaways, and everyone can tell me to shut up if you want, so you guys can talk. But here's my takeaways real quick. I'm not disagreeing that at some point in time, there was some sort of an agreement that there would be reimbursement put in place for the development organization who was putting in the sewer pipe. I had a chance to actually go down to Ricky's property and meet with his neighbors a couple of months ago. And we walked the property, and I was personally taken aback by how much of a sewer line was actually put in. I guess my initial thought when I would be reading these is the sewer may be extended down to the starting point of that yet to be purchased, or maybe purchased now, who knows, area of annexation. When I think, Ricky, you pointed out that it not only goes to that point, you showed me the manhole covers all the way down the road. So quite an extensive one was put in. It was, and from what I can tell, there was an agreement, and Mike, you're on. I don't know if Jamie was part of that agreement, or lack of agreement, or assumptions made.
Yes, he was.
Okay. And then I read through quite a lot of the corresponding emails that went back, right? I've seen that the original cost estimate was 147K. The actual was 212. Last couple of months ago, they came in, I believe, looking for a reimbursement of around 229K. And now, if I'm not mistaken, it's down to 186K. I did some back of the napkin calculations, and I've got them somewhere around here. where I saw some, tax lots went up, some went down. My concern still comes back though is, and I think I'm looking for names. I don't want to mispronounce anyone's names on this. But I think, Matt, we have you on, don't? Yeah, there's Matt.
Yes.
And in fact, he's even on video. Matt, my question to you is, one of the last times we chatted as well is we did have an ask if you would have had a chance to go to the properties and actually see how much of the property itself in the future, if it was annexed in. These would be lots, I believe, 28 and 2700. I'm trying to get them all out in front of me right now. On those lots, did you actually go out and have an opportunity to look at how much of those lots are actually buildable?
No, I
I
didn't.
think it was Ricky's property when I walked it. Most of it's just flat. It's wetland. You can't develop it, or at least the state won't let you develop it.
No, I didn't have a chance to do that. The revised numbers were based on the discussion in the sewer master plan that was approved a few years ago. So that was the basis for the revised numbers.
Okay, so I don't sit here and talk the entire time, though. We are in an open meeting. All the counselors have received this information, so I'm going to go reverse order this time and see what questions might be on the counselors' minds. And since I'm going in reverse order, I'm going to start with Counselor Prenslow.
Counselor Prenslow has no questions at this time.
Okay, Counselor Thomas.
I have no questions at this time.
Counselor Dodge.
No questions at this time.
Okay, Counselor Odrish.
In trying to keep my head wrapped around this, this is to reimburse this latest new subdivision that went in on 4th Street, correct? And that's the one we talked about, the pipe size.
Yes, that's the one this is going to reimburse.
And this is the same one that we had talked about, the price difference in pipe size.
Yes.
And we're down to the bare, bare bones numbers now on the pipe size, or is that completely what we thought happened a year and a half, 2 years ago is completely thrown out?
No, we sat down with Multitech, Matt and myself, and basically what numbers you see in front of you are just the oversized 10-inch pipe that runs down east-west down 4th Street into the industrial lift station. The developer decided, because of the 8-inch pipe running from Koeman Estates to the point on 4th Street where it turns east was all 8-inch. He threw that out. So what you're seeing is just the numbers for the extended 10-inch pipe.
Okay, then I have no further questions.
My follow-up question, then, and this goes back to Matt then. Out of curiosity, we put, oh boy, use the word we, right? It's a royal we. The city, working with you, put in this sewer extension. And I don't disagree that reimbursement to those that put the bill needs to happen. There's no disagreement in my mind on that at all. But the question comes back to whom shall be responsible? My question, and this might be back to Mike, even based off of previous discussions with Jamie or anyone else, why aren't we basically putting this entire burden of reimbursement on the yet to be started subdivision on that new lot? I'm trying to look at the exact lot numbers in front of me, right?
Okay, those three
100,
smaller
tax lot 100. There you go.
What you're looking at is the smaller 3 lots, and that would be lot 701, lot 2700, and lot 2800. If they were to annex into the city, and hook into that sewer line, then whatever development they put in, whether it be one house or 10 houses, puts a larger burden on the system itself. So that's basically what they're paying for, is their use of the system.
True, I can understand that part, but of course, that's if they annex in within the 15, I think it's 15 years, if I'm not correct. Matt's nodding, so I'm
That is
assuming it's
correct,
15 years.
yes.
Okay. So they just sit around and don't annex in for 15 years and life is grand.
Right.
My question to that, though, back to Matt, and maybe we're going down a rabbit hole we don't need to here, is it seems like it's a pretty big risk for the company to assume that the other property lots will just hold out instead of trying to recoup the cost on the primary individual, and that would be the land for annexation. I'm just kind of curious if that ever crossed anyone's mind. And the reason I'm talking is when I still see it, I can understand where everyone comes from. Let's say the one of the tax lots that are on a couple of acres wants to subdivide, and let's say they could throw 2 houses on there. So they're going to build 2 houses and connect and request to be annexed into the city. The system development charges, I'm assuming, are going to be added on top of the reimbursement, is it not?
Yes.
Then why aren't there system development economic charges for those properties already being used to pay for the sewer at that point? The money that would have or should be used then to upgrade our infrastructure. And this is maybe a question to the city and to Mike, and I apologize, Mike, I don't have this question to you prior to this, but why don't we just use our own system development charges and offset it that way?
I guess at the time that would have been something to look into. But on the other side of that coin, it is, if you didn't have this sewer line in place, then they would have to pay the price, the cost of putting whatever infrastructure they would need to put in at that time, the time they annex in and build their buildings. And that generally would be more costly than going out to an already existing sewer line.
No, I don't have any disagreement on that, though, but we are then making presumptions on the current property owners. That's why I was asking. I mean, part of me believes that if I was building 3 or 4 houses on my land, A, I'm already going through land planning, so I've got expenses there. I'm already having to bring out water mains and everything else. That's the system development charges I'm paying. So I guess I'm scratching my head now on top of that saying, hey, I've got to pay all these things and those system development charges, which should be bringing those services to my house, but and I'm still putting the bill to put them in anyhow. I'm not sure why I'm getting burdened with an extra, in some cases, $10,000, $13,000, $7,000. That's pretty big. That's my concern. I'm looking at individuals that have lived on these sites for some time, and I think if I were in their shoes, I would probably be scratching my head too, because I don't believe the current council as it sits believed the numbers would be what we're seeing now. That's all.
So it's my understanding that system development charges are the impact of what that specific building or construction will have on the systems. That doesn't include the cost of construction of those systems.
That's right. That's usually footed by the individual property owner.
Correct.
With that, though, additional, I mean, I'm assuming we still have this open for public comment, do we not, Vicki?
That is correct.
Okay. With that, I do want to open it up to individuals from the public that would like to comment on this. I would ask when you speak, to please give your name, and let's try to keep the comments somewhat short so we're not here till 10.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Andrew Sprower. I'm an attorney representing Rick and Becky Halbert. I spoke at the last June 9th meeting. Your comments have covered a number of our concerns, mainly, and thank you for being willing to walk my client's property with him, see the characteristics that we brought up at the last meeting. We're appreciative of that. Not only is, as you pointed out, a large portion of my client's property, tax lot 2700, not developable as wetlands, but the lower portions of that property, if developed, would not hook into these upper 4th Street improvements. They would link down into other improvements on Front Street. And I believe it was mentioned earlier that the statement was, if they annex into the city and link to the pipe, to the system, then they would be charged these proposed reimbursement costs. But the way the reimbursement district is actually worded, it's correct if they annex in, but even certain basic building applications, connections to city streets, things like that, that would not require them to hook into this improvement under the terms of the sewer reimbursement district could still trigger these costs, even though they would be receiving no benefit from it after being annexed in. So at the very least, we would definitely like to see this resolution contain a provision requiring that these properties, 2,700, who I represent, potentially 2,800 as well, that hooking into the system should be a requirement for requiring some type of reimbursement, because otherwise, without a direct benefit, they are being asked to reimburse a much larger sewer improvement of which they're deriving no benefit from, as they're on wells and not hooked into these systems. The other issue or question that I would have, and would be that for my client's property, which is right across, directly across from Cooeyman Estates, if his development or application, again, acknowledging he still has to annex into the city before any of this would apply, but if he were to link to city services at that top end of the property along 4th Street, he could potentially have hooked directly into the required Cooeyman improvements. At which point, again, this new expanded 10-inch pipe really only benefits tax lot 100 and its future development. It does not benefit tax lot 2700. So without any direct benefit derived, that is a big concern to us as to what the justification for their inclusion with this reimbursement district is, especially without a requirement of a direct connection to these improvements before a reimbursement would be required. Other than that, I am still, as I said, concerned about the area proration of these costs, where my client has a large property, but only a portion is developable, and another portion of the developable portion of his property would hook into other city improvements, not these improvements. And so, and yet we have these new numbers where from the previous projections to now, from Mr. Wadlington, my client would bear an even higher burden based on, we see costs going down for tax lot 100, costs going down for Cooeyman, and cost of reimbursement going up for tax lots 2,700, 2,800, and 701, which are the not densely built and not, the property's not hooked into this thing to begin with. So that is our concerns with this proposal.
And by the way, I completely concur with what you just said there. I found my cheat sheet that I did the calculations on, and you're right. I think we saw the future expansion 100 drop almost 13%, 12.67, if my math was right. I think we saw Coyman's drop quite a lot. And we saw another one that, I think that was just general drop. The other ones did go up. The Matt, real quick, did you already mentioned you didn't have a chance to tour, I think tax lot 2,700, but Andrew did point this out, and Ricky pointed it out as well. When I did tour it, if they were to connect off of that property on the lower wetlands area, assuming they were even able to permitted to build there, there would be a pretty big pumping station required just to get the sewer up to the level to actually drain into that new sewer pipe. Quite an elevation push up. And that's part of the reasons why, Matt, I asked if you had a chance to tour it, because I do agree with what Andrew was saying in counsel for Ricky. And that is, if they were to develop that, I don't see why they would put a pumping station and to move sewage up. I think they would pump it down 3rd Street, which doesn't have a current connection down there probably. That's beside the point though.
Do you want me to respond to that now?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, I sat with Mike and we talked about this, and the discussion was that in that corner of the property, they still need to go across the street to get into the existing pump station. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was my understanding that would be able to gravity sewer into that existing pump station. Mike, is that incorrect?
That is correct. And actually what you would be looking at from his property, because of where the industrial lift station sits, is he would be hooking into the improvements that we are talking about currently before they drop into the pump station. And yes, you would have enough gravity flow coming down from where his house is to pick up anything that he would want to build on the accessible buildable property into that line that drops into the pump station.
A follow-up question then for you. When the reimbursement district was being authored, is there a reason we put in permits that would be anything other than connecting to the sewer, such as a building permit to put in a driveway or anything else?
I believe that goes with our city codes, our city building codes.
Do you pay an SDC charge or something every time you pull a permit?
No, only if the STCs are only paid if you hook up to water and or sewer.
Right. So what I was asking then, I think Andrew had a good point on this one, and I guess I'm just going to follow up on that question. Is there a reason why we would not limit and trigger this reimbursement off after annexation was done into the city's urban growth boundary, and B, a building permit was issued that would require hookups to the various services? Is there any reason we did not limit that or scope it to that?
Well, the reason it's written the way it is it's following our guidelines and our construction standards.
Okay, I don't understand that.
I believe that when the attorneys were writing this, it's based on what's in the city's codes currently.
That's my understanding also. The code, the city codes list the reasons for triggering this. And pretty much it's any type of development, and that's the way it's written into our city codes.
But that's any sort of development that would take place post being annexed in. Because they're currently outside of the jurisdiction of our city, so we have no authority for permitting on their particular parcels.
That is correct. They'd have to annex into the city before this would happen.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I guess it just raises another question for me on these sewer improvements, first for Cooeyman Estate and then the expanded pipe extending to tax lot 100 for future development. Those were improvements that were required irregardless of any potential development of tax lot 2700 or 2800 for that matter. They were going to be costs required of those developments to provide these city services to those subdivisions. So if those improvements were hooked into by tax lot 2700 after annexation into the city, they would still pay their additional SDC or their fees for hooking into that. But if they didn't, those costs were still required in order for those two subdivisions to be developed. So again, I just kind of question why tax lots 2700 and 2800 are even being included in these.
Right.
I can answer that if I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The master plan that was done for this area included those lots 2700, 2800, 700, and tax lot 100 all as one total acreage that would need to be sewered. It didn't break it out into different areas and the likelihood of them being sewered. So I agree that while the impact from a smaller acreage is going to be smaller, it's still a portion of the total sum, which is why it's broken down on a per acre basis.
And I still feel that amount is, I still feel that's very high compared to what I felt like we were led to when this was brought to us the first time.
Councilor
No,
Prince has a question.
Go ahead, Robert, sorry.
Hey, I'm curious. We're all discussing this reimbursement district. Is this something that we have to do? Do we have to allow the reimbursement district to actually continue?
No, it's not a requirement.
Yeah, that's why we have the resolution before us. I guess, and Matt, this goes just kind of back for you guys as well as Mike. My heartburn is inclusion of those tax lots. Yes, I could understand that they could potentially benefit. I understand why they were included. But I still feel like the whole purpose that this was put in was for the eventual expansion development of the tax lot 100, the large acreage. And I just have a hard time stomaching seeing the current totals being put forth that just seem very high. Yes, I understand that if tax lot 2700 or 2800 wanted to install or subdivide or build their property, they would already had to do these improvements. But the difference is that would have been their choice to first petition the city to be annexed in and then go through the process of land planning and improvements, et cetera. And thus they could have understood the costs. I guess my heartburn on this one right now is as currently written, I'm just have heartburn about establishing a district and impacting properties that are not within the jurisdiction of our own city. That's my biggest concern. That being the case,
I do have another question for city staff. Is it a requirement when a property is annexed into the city that they must connect to city services when they become annexed?
Yes, you have to connect to city services if you annex into the city.
So then it would not be an option for either of the properties, 2700 or 2800, to continue using their well and septic system in place of getting city services. They would have to get city services and they would have the option to continue using their well and septic for whatever purpose.
That is correct. If they annex into the city, city code requires that they hook up to city services. And they can keep their well to do irrigation and that sort of thing with. But I believe a septic tank at that point has to be dug up and filled in per DEQ's orders.
Okay, well, just to give you all my 2 cents worth, I don't like the way that this is written. I understand the need to include 2,700 and 2,800, even though they're not annexed now. But I don't like the fact that if they decide to put in a driveway to attach to a city street, or they want to put an outbuilding that doesn't require water or sewer, that they have to pay these fees. They're not choosing to connect to our system. I don't see where they should have to pay the fee.
The thing about it is, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, that's just my 2 cents worth.
Okay, the thing about it is if the way things sit now with them not within the city limits, if they want to put in a driveway or they want to put in a outside building, if they want to put in an underground or an in-ground pool, they're all permitted through Marion County. We don't deal with that until they're actually make the conscious decision that they want to be annexed into the city. So all that other stuff you're talking about wouldn't trigger the cost for these, for the sewer improvements unless they were annexed into the city.
I'm not sure where I want to go with this right now. As I said, I'm a strong believer that I do believe that the company that put this in on the benefit of the city deserves reimbursement. I have no argument on that. The costs seem still very high, although I can understand why they're high after walking the property and seeing the length of sewer line that was put in. I'm not sure if I've somehow missed it in the last 3 years, but I don't recall council ever being presented with the cost of this upgrade and potential costs for reimbursement. So please let me know if in the last 3 years, Mike, did I miss this coming to the city council?
No, this is what we're dealing with now. It hasn't been dealt with until recently. We haven't seen any numbers from anybody until they presented us with the figures that you have now.
I still feel that the numbers are still way high for a subdivision that was put in already. But I'm not an engineer. I just,
Yeah, and it's and James, it seems high, but when I look at it, I can understand where the costs come from, at least from the initial estimate of 147. I don't know if that's for the whole project or if it's for Coinans, et cetera, but there's quite a length of sewer that was put in. That's why it kind of shocks me that the city was putting itself in a position of having that sort of a handshake agreement or reimbursement off of an unknown number.
all right,
That's neither here nor now. Staff has changed. Different people are in place. That's why we've got to deal with it now.
thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Vicky, do we have to come to a vote on this resolution tonight?
No, you can table it or you don't have to have any action. It's your choice.
Well, I think we deserve action both to Matt. We also deserve action for the homeowners. But I'm not ready to vote yet on this today. Although I don't want to just keep a hope this hearing open though either. So what are the options on the table we have right now then, Vicky? We either vote this in, which I don't think you hear consensus, at least I'm not hearing consensus and stuff along council to do such a vote. I don't want to also drag open the open meeting. We can go back and forth, obviously, but that is also unfair to the homeowners that are being impacted by this and or potentially impacted by this, to keep calling back into these council meetings, although we do enjoy their presence. Can we close the hearing at least and allow council to revisit the resolution? Oh, wait.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So actually would like to, this is Peter and Helen Koyman. We are the owners of 701, and I just wanted to get clarification. On the new document, it says tax lot 701 has been paid by the developer under a separate agreement. And that number also went up from the original one. To me, I interpret that as putting to rest anything that we would owe because it recognizes that we had a separate agreement. We are already in the city annex, by the way.
Matt or Mike, you can correct me on the last time we had this discussion 2 months ago. We had this discussion, but I believe what you said is any future development on 701 would trigger it.
I was provided with a document that was signed by both parties at the time the development went in, and it basically said that the Koymans would be afforded fully functional lots.
Yeah, that is correct. That was part of the agreement that we had with the developer. And we did already put in the larger line that we talked about in the June meeting. This, by the way, also applies to lots 19, 20, and 21 on the north end of the Koyman Estates, just in case that comes up at all. Because I find it a little bit confusing what it says about Koyman Estates itself, like the properties that are within Koyman Estates. So just looking for clarification on that.
So Matt, could you answer that question then really quick for them? At this point,
Yeah.
if I look at 701 with the asterisk next to it, there is no additional fee that they're looking at.
Correct, and I agree with what Mike said. There was an agreement made between the developer of the Koyman Estates and the owners of this 1.26 acre parcel, the Koymans. Whereas, as I understand it, that obligation has been paid or has been accepted. The 1 acre, the double asterisk for the Koyman Estate was just a function that 1 acre was included in the overall acreage for the reimbursement district as described in the sewer master plan that was adopted 3 or 4 years ago. So I wanted to make sure that 1 acre was included and was a part of the overall distribution of those costs. Obviously, those costs were borne by the developer themselves, and so it's unlikely that they will pay themselves. But that's how that's why that was put in there, so that total denominator is accurate and in accordance with the master plan.
So any future impacts are only on tax lot 100, 27, and 28, 2 of which are not in city limits.
Correct.
Those 3 lots.
Okay, so so Vicky, can we close the public hearing and then step back and revisit?
Mr. Mayor,
go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, my apologies, just since discussion is being held on closing the hearing. In looking at the numbers really quick on Matt Wadlington's August 28th or 26th letter, it references under item 4 a total reimbursement of $229,344.90. But if you add the proposed reimbursement column of his chart on page 2, it actually totals $229,377.90.
Yeah.
So there's a small discrepancy between those numbers before you close the
I
public
agree.
portion of the
In
hearing.
fact, so I see the 229. I've seen that in a few places. I saw the original estimate. I saw the actual cost of 218, and then I saw another one of 186. So I'm assuming, looking at Matt, I'm assuming he's still on.
Yep.
what they are seeking is a reimbursement of the 229.
Correct. Correct. And the discrepancy between the total amounts was just a rounding error because I just took the percentages as written and multiplied those by the total amount. And so there is some rounding error in that. And I'll be happy to clean that up.
Okay, so back to options here. I don't have a disagreement that, yes, we need to put some sort of a reimbursement district in. I'm with James, where I think the numbers still seem to be off. I'm also concerned about buildable versus not buildable lots when just roughly going off of saying someone's got 2 acres when I don't think their 2 acres is fully buildable. At the same time, I don't understand why I saw some decreases somewhere. I just lost it. Where I was showing, I don't understand why we adjusted the numbers down for tax lot 100 down more while we increased some of the others. I'm still at a loss for that, and I'm not happy currently with our resolution. I don't think any building permit should trigger. I think it should be a building permit that triggers a connection into those services personally. That's my personal opinion. So I would probably like to have time to, as a council, have a discussion on what the resolution wording should probably say. And I'm not sure how the other councilors feel about that.
I'm in agreement with you, Mayor.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think too, the sooner we can make a decision, the better, because I feel like the can's got kicked down the road on our neighbors here for quite some time, and I think it's only fair to them that a decision gets made sooner than later. Because this was June, now we're September. I've been through similar type things where the can gets kicked down the road, and it's not a good seat to be in. So I feel like we owe them a decision, maybe not tonight, but within the next 30 days, we absolutely owe them a decision.
I think we owe them a decision by the next council meeting for sure. What about you, Councilor Prinsloo?
I'm ready to put it to a vote tonight, but if you guys want to table it till next month, that's fine.
Okay, I would suggest we go ahead and go ahead.
I was going to say I'm fine with voting tonight as well, but I think we would need 3 people to agree to that.
We can have a motion in a second. But before we vote, I believe we do need to close the public meeting. Do we not, Vicki?
That is correct. If you're going to put a motion on the table, and or if you are wanting to close public comment and go to put this to the next meeting, you can also do that. Your options are open, and even at the next meeting, if you wait and put this at the next meeting, you can always reopen the public hearing, but you would need to repost it and re-notify.
So let's do this. I have 2 that would like to go ahead and vote. That means we have a first and a second. That means we can put it onto the table. I would like to go ahead and close this meeting though, before we move into that. With that, I'm going to read the script that was provided to me 2 months ago. So before I close or continue the public hearing, are there any additional questions from the city council, staff, or anyone? Okay, public testimony is now over. I will close the public hearing at 8:14 p.m. on September 15th, 2020. I will now entertain discussions and amendments on the motion of the resolution. So moving forward with that, Councilor Prinsloo and Councilor Thomas, if you guys would like to make a motion and second, we can go ahead and do a vote on the resolution.
So before we do that, I just want to make sure that we were in agreement, at least consensus maybe, that only tapping into those services would trigger this, I think is what James was saying. and Mayor, you were agreeing to as well. Does that sound correct?
It does, but then the resolution will have to be redone. That's one of the reasons.
So,
I don't believe
so
it would, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I don't
Go ahead,
believe
Mike.
that it would be, because the only way that you would trigger hooking into these improvements would be to annex into the city. If you don't want to do, to pay the fee or to hook into the services, don't annex into the city. And I believe the way the codes are written, because of the fact that once you annex into the city, you're required to hook into city services, that the annexation itself would trigger the payment of the reimbursement district.
Did that answer your question, Counselor?
Yeah, that answered my question. I think with that, I would propose that we go ahead with the reimbursement district. And since Mike says it doesn't need to be rewritten, I would say we do it as is, given that they would have to annex into the city for it to trigger any event. So with that, I propose that we move forward as recommended by Matt's reports.
Councilor Prinsloo seconds it.
Okay, I'm going to do a roll call for votes on this one, since it will just be a mumbled mess if we all said it. So with that, Counselor Prinsloo, yay or nay?
Yay.
Counselor Thomas?
Yay.
Counselor Dodge?
I'm gonna say yay. I'm on the fence, but yay.
Counselor Odrish?
I'm going to say yay.
I'm gonna go on record and vote nay. The resolution, though, will carry and pass. The reason I voted nay is I just don't feel as if we should be those tax lots. I think I just can't be in agreement with those two tax lots being on there outside the city limits. But with that, the resolution passes 4-1. Matt, I do appreciate you taking the time to dial in, answering the questions, and being patient with us. Andrew, Ricky, everyone else, P&H. I appreciate you guys for your time and your patience as we went through and discussed on this. If you have additional questions or concerns, please feel free to, you can either reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to chat more with you, or you can reach out to Vicky or even Mike down at City. Okay. With that, let's move on to mayor and or council presentations. With that, I will go through the list here. Councilor Odrish.
I just wanted to thank everybody's support during this time of the smoke and the fires and everything else on behalf of what the city has done for me and for the rest of the citizens here in Hubbard. Thank you for getting through this as we continue to work our way out of this.
Completely concur. Councilor Thomas.
Nothing for me.
Councilor Dodge.
Nothing from me.
Councilor Prinsloo.
Nothing for me.
Okay. The only thing I've got is to second what James said. To see the community come together over the last couple of weeks has been very impressive, from individuals that were not only out fighting fires, city staff helping rescue animals when they left the city hall, individuals donating, taking things down to the fire stations. It was quite a pleasure to see the community come together and help not just Hubbard, but helped Aurora, Woodburn, etc. It was very impressed and very proud to be a citizen of our area, the North Marion community for sure. With that discussion, we'll move on to the next topic unless there's anything else in number 5.
Can I just say that Ali Sobel has been really great in getting things together for the community and the fire departments, and I would just like to recognize her for that.
Completely
Absolutely.
agree.
Thanks, Allie.
I would also like to add Whitney Workman on there as well with all she's done for the donations and et cetera. But the list goes on. It is quite impressive. Okay, let's move on. Discussion regarding personnel evaluation process. Everyone should now have in their pocket the suggestions that were put forth on improving the appraisal process. Vicki, I like what the city of Hillsborough is doing. I thought it was pretty nice. In terms of the evaluation forms, I wanted to have something printed out and sent out, but I want to speak to something more on a timeline as well. And I'd like to get the counselors' opinions on this. In the corporate world or in the private world, we can't do evaluations or appraisals just off of one setting, right? There's obviously goal settings, there's obviously touch points, etc. It's a yearly process, if you would. It's a year in review. I think it does a disservice. And I think one of the problems we ran into with the initial evaluations that we went through was we tried to get it done in one night. We tried to review the prior, we tried to have discussions among council, we tried to chat with each one of the department heads. We can't do it in one night, not without pre-work going into it. And there was reasons why we did it that way to begin with, but I think we've seen a lot of fallacies in terms of how it came out. I think for better or for worse, when we went out and we did the follow-up with one of our department heads later on, we spent a lot more time with the one individual. We were able to provide a much more detailed report out and provide, I think, a much more robust evaluation, even based off of the ones we were previously using. What I would like to suggest is that when we move into evaluations this year, we do a few things, and I would love to get some opinions on this. I believe we should kick it off in October. I know that I'm throwing timelines out the window right now on existing. I'm just trying to look at a better way. I believe in October, we should request our department heads submit a written evaluation based off of their previous year. It could be a simple letter, or it could be something that I would call the 3x3, something that would focus on, hey, let the council know what you believe your 3 best accomplishments were, or your 3 top accomplishments, your 3 areas that you think that you have great strengths in, and also 3 areas that you believe you can continue to develop or improve. I think just a simple 3x3 statement that can fit on an 8x10 sheet of paper would probably go a long ways to presenting the case of an individual. In my own private work, I used to refer to it as the brag sheet. Hey, told my staff, get your brag sheets written up. Well, apparently we can't call them brag sheets anymore. Now we call them self-evaluations or some other silly word that makes everyone happy. But either way, it works well. The other thing I think that we missed that we need to include during this time is not only do we do that, but we also need to get peer evaluations brought in as well. We need to have department head peers provide feedback. So the counselors don't only have their impressions of how things are going, but we also need to get that type of feedback coming from their peers in the same type of format where we would expect them to provide a 3x3. Hey, tell us 3 great things or 3 things that this person accomplished this year. Tell us 3 strengths that this individual exhibited this year and 3 areas that they think that might be good for development and or improvement. I use the word development and improvement interchangeably there because it shouldn't be seen in such a negative connotation. But obviously, anytime you tell someone they need to work on something, they think all of a sudden it's a negative. It really isn't. Development and improvement should also be seen as positives for your career growth. So my suggestion is we go through the process in October to do that and then have the reviews in November. I would like to suggest that based off of those reviews, that we actually take the time to identify what we believe, and it wasn't the previous ones, but identify a merit increase if one is so desired. If someone is performing well, instead of just a step, maybe just a simple merit increase. Here is your raise for doing great work, whatever it might be. This would be different from their COLA increases if we decide to have a COLA, But what I'm trying to do is step back and figure out if we were to give department heads all a raise outside of COLA, I would also like to make sure it's in the fiscal year budget the next year. And I think if we have predetermined merits on what we believe those merit increases should be, we can have those fed into these salary discussions when we go into our May or April budget committee, so that those merit increases can be already calculated in and separated out from a COLA increase. And then we could also hopefully effectively maybe better budget. So my suggestion is that we don't try to accomplish this in one day, that we break it up into at least 2 months, that we do in October, where we allow our department heads to write their self-evaluation, and we ask for peer input on each one of their department heads. So for each department heads, I'm assuming we would have 3 peers provide that type of input. I think we have 4, yeah. So there you go. Then based off of that, those should be hopefully released to city council so they have a chance to review offline prior to going into a session in November, where we would then set aside an executive session outside of regular council hours to where, or regular council days, where we can do due diligence to make sure that we're giving each department head enough time so we don't feel like we're rushing and or going late into the evening and thus feeling the pressure to move forward. That would be my suggestion. And on top of that, I would also like to see us replace the last and the previous evaluation reports or performance appraisal with something new, similar to what we saw provided from Vicky, what Hillsborough does, which by the way, Vicky, I had a good chuckle because every time I kept reading that, whoever wrote it must have worked at Intel. They used a lot of Intel acronyms here and there. With that, I would love to get some input real quick from not just council, but I'd like to get input as well from city department heads.
One thing I think is important, and I think we ran across this a lot during the evaluation process, was that when we have a performance rating metric and there's the 4 levels of the metric, we ran into where, man, I wish we could be 1 above or 1 below. And I think by rewording that and having 5 performance ratings instead of 4, that will alleviate maybe some of the areas where we felt like it was tougher to make a decision. Where you would have a median, like a 3 would be meet standards. Then you would have exceed standards, far exceed standards. And then below that, you would have meet some standards or does not meet standards, so that there's a delineation between meeting standards and not meeting standards. You're probably meeting some. So I think having those 5 ratings would give us a better ability to truly reflect what the employees have done and rating them more fairly.
I agree. So 5 as opposed to 4.
So I had a quick question. So the way the policy reads is your yearly step increase. So how are you going to do that if you table the department heads only?
Eventually, you're going to run out of step increases. I don't think every year people get step increases.
Well, not for long-term employees, but for new employees like myself, or new people to their positions. So every year, I mean, the policy reads that every year you come into whether you get a step increase or not. So you're segregating the department heads from the employees in the policy, is what I'm stating.
The policy says on your annual, it's an annual evaluation, but the policy also talks about the department heads, which are done in May. The council can change that for department heads, because if we do it in May, then you and Mike's annual is actually in October. So that wouldn't, be conducive to go ahead and do it in May, like the policy says. The council can change that date.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that Mike and I are October and Melinda is November, I think.
Melinda isn't a department head though.
Okay.
There's only 4 of you.
Okay.
And the other difference as well is council only deals with department heads, right? We assume the department heads are dealing with their staff.
So you're proposing a 360 evaluation for every evaluation, right?
Yes, I am proposing that every time we do an evaluation, we do the due diligence to get that 360 and or peer review or peer feedback in for each department head.
And then you're gonna wait a month and discuss that. Are you gonna segregate, or not segregate, but are you gonna separate the meetings between department heads, or are you gonna try to do it all in one night?
I'm assuming we could probably try to do it all in one night as one executive session, but we could also then schedule it to where the employee in discussion can come in at a specific time.
Okay.
If we do the due diligence, my hope is we're not sitting there for 5 hours. Right,
Yeah,
that's the
that was
idea of
pretty
doing the
hard
pre-
last time.
No, last time, the way it was done is none of the counselors were allowed to see any prior reviews before the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, that was,
And we got no feedback from peers, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we need to get feedback from peers. I completely agree with both, with what Vicky pointed out.
So I'm gonna agree with Counselor Thomas that I believe, yes, there should be 5 different ranges. Because it's easier to do than 4. The other thing I was thinking about is, would it be conducive if we did a mid-year evaluation as well on top of the yearly one?
You bet. We should do that. It's only fair to the department heads. And it also makes it easier for them to get that feedback because we'll talk about it later, but you know, anytime any of us talk to the department head, we have to talk as a council.
Yeah, I think an abbreviated mid-year, at least what I've seen in the private sector, they're not a full length, full year review. They're more of an abbreviated, less formal, more of a where could we improve, where are we doing great, just so everybody's on the same page type of meeting. I think it'd be really effective.
You bet.
Just a
like a
check-in.
goal set. I'm sorry, Counselor Thomas, my question is like a goal setting mid-year.
Yeah, so I think, hey, here's my 3 goals for the year. Here's how I feel I'm doing on each of those goals, and then, you know, we could have a dialogue about where we're going and how we're going to achieve the goals that we've started. I think it's pretty effective versus end of the year. Hey, it's already too late to kind of have this discussion. Where are we at? We can sort of meet in the middle there and get a better idea if we're off track, or if we're on track. Great, let's keep going, type of thing.
I really appreciate that. That's a great idea.
Yep. Councilor Aldrich, what do you got? You're shaking your head.
I totally agree. I like having the extra in there, and then if there is something that we are concerned about, you know, give them 6 months to make sure we recognize that those things have been addressed, and then the council can continue on.
Great. Councilor Prinsloo, what are your thoughts?
My question would be to Vicky, is there anything in our current charter that would prohibit or regulate having that mid-year meeting?
No, although I do see maybe an issue for future councils because it isn't written to have a mid-year. If the current council is always the current council, I can see that happening. But if you have turnover or whatnot, since it's not written anywhere, then it may not continue.
Are you suggesting, Vicky, that we update the policy manual to include a section on department head reviews?
I was just saying that that maybe you might want to see how everything goes. And then if you feel that you feel strongly that this is something that should be happening annually to where you are doing a mid-year, to go ahead and do an update to the policy so that future councils will continue with the process.
So give it a year, then take a look and do a retrospective on it.
Council, one of my main concerns as a new employee with the city is that the council didn't recognize the duties that were performed by each individual department head. So, for example, utility billing, maybe that was assumed that that was done by the administrative department instead of the finance department or the public works department. You see what I mean? That's, go ahead,
Utility,
man.
I'm assuming was always under finance, so.
Well, you may have assumed that, but the other part of the council may not have. So them coming in, not realizing what the job duties were. So maybe council needs to review that prior to the evaluation, their job duties on their, Vicky, can you tell me what's it? I'm
So
sorry.
the
so
job
tired.
descriptions, the job descriptions
Yes.
were provided to all of the council for them to
Okay.
review to see what all of the department heads' duties include.
Okay, so I'm just bringing that up because in my last evaluation in October, it felt like you didn't realize what all the finance department encompassed or what all the public works department encompassed. And yes, we do cross at some points, but the responsibility lies with each department head. You see what I mean?
In a small office, there's going to be overlap, but you can speak for your perception. But I had my own personal perception. After 3 years, pretty much had a good idea what you all were doing. But I'm not speaking for all of council. So,
Counselor Dodge, I guess what I'm thinking is, as we're proposing the new way of doing these, to where in October you provide us with something saying these are the things I accomplished, these are the things that maybe I need improvement in. All of the information regarding your job position and the things that you do, I think that could be included in that, so that when we do the reviews in November, it reflects what we've read from you saying all of those things, so that we have a better idea and can do the review with the most information that we have.
Okay.
That's why I think that was one concern that we had, was not knowing what other department heads felt. You know, maybe this department head did this and nobody knows it, and we don't know it. So by us doing this 360,
that
trying to go
come out. Yep.
extra step gets us that information, Judy.
And
Hopefully.
and I totally agree that the 360 is an awesome way to go.
Great.
Okay, so an action item that needs to be taken away from here, though, is we need, oh, go ahead. Is there a comment? Okay. Is we need to come up with a better performance appraisal. We've got an example from Hillsborough, et cetera. Vicky, I'm assuming, I'm not asking is there a counselor who would like to volunteer to get one brought up?
I'd be willing to do that.
Okay, is there any disagreement on council, Thomas, Prenslow, Audrish, on Michelle picking this up and helping define it?
No.
No.
I have no issues with that, as long as it's the 5-step system
yep.
that they discussed.
Okay, then Michelle, I will hand that off to you and I appreciate it. So we can get this done. I will, Vicky, let me write up what I had just mentioned. I know you're going to have it in the minutes, but put it on a timeline and send it out to everyone as well. And I could probably get that out sometime tomorrow morning. just so everyone at least can see the visual.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's
Thank
move
you.
on because it's going to be getting really late and we still have an executive session. Staff reports, Chief Budge isn't here. So I'm assuming fire, no update on the fire, and I'm assuming he's still pretty darn busy because we're getting his updates already every other day, at least in email, which I truly appreciate. Police Department, Chief Rash. You're on mute, Chief. And while Chief Rash is working on getting off of mute, we're going to jump up to Administrative Department. Vicky. You there, Vicky? Oh, now Dave's off. You there,
Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah, sorry, I had to step out to use the restroom. Did you
Oh,
call
I'm
me?
very glad you kept us muted. Thank you.
What, did you ask me something?
Yeah, Chief's report. It's just a report.
Oh, we're there. Okay. Sorry about that. So, just a couple things. National Night Out is being rescheduled to October 6th. I believe Molly got that out on the newsletter, and we don't have anybody signed up yet who's going to host a National Night Out.
Do we believe it's going to happen?
No,
Okay.
but we will see. We're going to give it 2 weeks, and we may have to cancel. I'll just have to keep an eye on COVID-19 restrictions.
Got it.
So, the other thing, does anybody have any questions on that?
No.
Okay. The other thing is that one of our officers is in background with another agency. I think we're probably he'll be with them by November. So I just guess I'm asking if you guys consider if we can start a process of hiring once he gets a conditional offer.
Is there any reason why we want to wait for the conditional offer?
Well, if he doesn't get the job,
Well,
you
I
know,
mean,
but
doesn't it take a while just to even get applicants?
yeah, we could leave it open for a little while, 3 weeks, and we should know better. I think they're almost done with this background.
Is there any issue amongst council to have him just move forward and start a process of selecting candidates?
I have no issue with it.
Tom?
No, let's start now.
Dodge?
Just no issue.
Winslow?
I have no issues with it.
Okay, so Dave, why don't we try to jump in on that one? Because I do know
Okay.
it takes a while and we just literally got the police department up to full strength.
Right. I do want to get with Judy and just make sure where our finances are, but I'll see if there's any problem.
Okay, Dave.
So, okay. Does anybody have any questions about any police activity or anything?
I recently did attend a meeting that Chief Ferris gave a really nice talk about the state of police departments and what have you. And his exact comments were, big departments will be sucking up all the little guys as people because it's so hard to get into the academy that they need laterals. Is that true, Dave?
Yeah, there's been correspondence that proposed budget cuts for downfall in the state is they don't plan on any academies to start until next July. And the one that's starting in November, I think, is full. So it's about 7 months. But I've also heard that I read today that the governor is looking about trying to prevent that, the shortfalls in state government, but I don't know if that includes the police academy or not. So that is something. And I think you're correct. I think that these bigger agencies are going to be very offering to smaller agency personnel for opportunity and better pay. So
Thank you.
Okay, Chief, any other questions for Chief Rash? If not, let's move on to the administrative department. Vicky. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, the awning, I submitted for the permit on the awning for the window and was told the snow load and wind load capacity was not adequate on the one that we had purchased. So I have a call into the company. I've been waiting for them to get back with me to find a similar awning that meets the state requirements for snow load and wind load. I was kind of surprised at what the requirements are, but we're considered a commercial building, and that's we have to fall under that category. So the other thing that I need to ask the council about is due to the air quality, we've been trying to get the work done in the city hall as best that we can, that you know, items that have to be done there at the city, and then we've been boxing up our stuff and taking it home and working remotely as much as we can. However, there are some employees that are unable to do that, and the concern that I have is because of the air quality in the building. How does the council want to, the employees were concerned that the ones that can't remote home, they didn't want to take their sick leave, vacation time, or comp time in order to, you know, leave the building, and because they're not able to remote in. So I wanted to bring that up and let you guys discuss that.
My assumption is that they cannot work and they're unable to because of what they have, whatever reason they can't commute or telecommute in. That's what my assumption is. They use comp time, sick time, or their leave time. It's kind of a no-brainer. Same thing would happen if I had to go home.
Well, so
But if it's mandatory, Mayor, wouldn't it be covered?
That's,
I mean,
use comp
there is-
time. I guess I'm struggling on this one. I understand some can't, and the rest of council can chime in on this one. But we've got lots of comp time, sick time. We have other time. If you can't work because of the environment or acclimatal weather, if you're snowed in and can't get to work, you don't get paid. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think if you cannot telecommute from home and you are sent home because we had to close down City Hall, my assumption first is use your comp time.
well, I'm speaking for the employees that don't necessarily get comp time. So we have an administrative assistant that is in the building, but the building's hazardous as far as the air quality. And she cannot remote in because she's got no projects to work on. But yet City Hall's gonna shut down. So I understand that if we have comp time, we're gonna use our comp time as department heads, but our employees may need to be credited that because we have to close. Do you understand the difference there?
Oh, I completely understand, but I also, my stance, my point, and then you can talk to the rest of council on this one, is it's an unfortunate event, but the city is not liable
Right.
to pay wages if an individual is unable to come to work. And even
Unless
if
they're under
because we
union
had to shut it
contract.
down.
Yeah, unless they're under union contract.
Unless they're under union contract with different, that would only be the police department, I believe.
Okay.
Now, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to be very black and white. Because this,
Well,
again, to use a term that James used earlier, Pandora's box. At what point it's raining too hard, my car is broke, I can't get to work, or the city hall burned down. Heaven forbid, let's not that happen. But
Well, I understand government's gray. I understand grants are gray. I understand. But I'm just speaking for our employees, not necessarily the department heads, but the employees who don't have access to that comp time or have very limited comp time.
Judy, I have a question for you, since you're being the voice of the employees. What specific hazard are you referring to?
Well, for example, the air quality hazard of being hazardous or very unhealthy, and we have to close City Hall.
Okay, well, is there not the option to wear particulate masks? I know in my job, because I do work outside, my department provides that. Does the city not provide N95 masks for you all?
Well, we don't necessarily have the N95, but maybe that is available. But it's the fact that it's the air quality inside the building. We're not getting any fresh air, even though we're not outside. You understand? So it's circulating the bad air is my point.
Well, it's your opinion, if I may, that it's bad air, unless you know something that's gone on that I'm unaware of, or, you know, council's unaware of as far as testing goes. But I would think that the first option would be to try to get equipment that would make it so that the employees could continue working safely, or as safe as possible. And if that's not possible, then we should, I think, look at closing the city hall. Yeah, I mean, as far as closing it to the employees as well as the citizens. So I'm kind of shocked that we aren't looking into options to keep employees functional, rather than just worried about those that can't get sent home.
Right, and I understand that. It's to the point, like this week, for these, I don't know, 3 or 4 days that are coming up, it may be a very unhealthy or hazardous air that is being brought into the building. It's a very old building. It's not a new building. It doesn't have all of the new stuff in the building, and it is recycling the bad, unhealthy air that's on the news.
Well, Judy, I can speak from my employer's standpoint, in the sense that I'm in a relatively new building and
Uh-huh.
we still have air leaks. So I don't think
I
it's
know.
the building. I think we should be looking at other options. But again,
Oh.
that's my voice. City council has many voices.
And just to jump in, I don't disagree with what Robert's saying or Judy. The reason we made the decision last week was the air was pretty darn unhealthy. And I pray that we don't ever see that again. I think it's
Me
the
too.
first time in 3 years I've seen it. I did have a discussion yesterday with Vicky, by the way, Judy, saying we need to get someone in to replace the furnace filters, because that air should be recirculated through filters, and we probably need to line it up and make sure that those filters are being temporarily probably replaced every other day until the
Yeah,
smoke is
Vicky
cleared.
mentioned that. Yeah.
But I don't anticipate that we continue to shut the city hall down for poor air quality much more than a few more days. That would be my hope.
I
don't see
agree, and I hope that too.
Yeah. And in terms of the pandemic, et cetera, I mean, we just been hit with things left and right in 2020. And I do appreciate you speaking up for the concerns of the employees within the city. I am glad we have department heads looking out. Go ahead, Chief.
Well, I just wanted to answer a question. Yes, we just got another 1,000 N95 mask in yesterday. And we've had those ever since the pandemic. Just one thing to consider, obviously the police department can't go home, right? We have to be there. But the admin assistant is the one that I think we're referring to. There is, city's got to take in considerations if someone is getting sick because of the air quality. It's a liability towards the city. I just want to point that out.
Great. That's why we send them home.
So, okay.
Counselor Dodge, so at my particular job, they've been closing the building for since Thursday. And if somebody is an exempt employee and can work from home, we do. However, if it is an employee that cannot work from home, then they take their sick time for the days that the building is closed. So that's how we've worked it there. I think that works well. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you,
Councilor
Michelle.
Thomas, what do you think? I don't think I've heard from you yet.
Yeah, I'm certainly not advocating for anyone anywhere to work in what we would call hazardous conditions. I would say if there are remedies such as changing the air filters daily or every other day and wearing masks, I think that would alleviate a lot of the issue. I think a lot of the problem we run into here also is public sector versus private sector. And we as a council, I don't think are afforded some of the luxuries of options that would be there in the private sector. So unfortunately, some of these guidelines, like you said, are black and white for good or for bad. But I think we should absolutely do everything we can to make sure the employees have what they need for the building to be as safe as possible.
So I did schedule to have the filter replaced. They can't get out until next Thursday. And I have been wearing my mask and I'm still getting a headache in the building. And that's why I appreciate you allowing those that can remote in to remote in. My concern is the person that is not able to remote in does not want to take her leave, and I'm concerned that they're going to stay in an unhealthy environment
I
because
agree.
they don't want to use their time.
I agree.
And not to sound callous, because I like everyone down there. I think you all do a good job. I don't know how many more times I can comment on that. But at the same time, it is a personal option if they want to take that leave. If they don't want to use it, then I have no other option than to say either they don't come into work because it's closed, or they do the best we can with precautions with the masks, just like the police officers are, which I don't think someone should just be sitting around doing nothing in the office, quite honestly. But again, the key term that you're using, Vicky and Judy, is they don't want to. That's a free choice. The
No,
option is there.
no, my point is if council declares that City Hall is,
Council never did declare it. They
oh,
made the
okay.
determination. The determination was made on my call that to send you guys home because the air was that bad last week. Council
Right,
did not make
and
that
this is an
determination.
emergency. This is a special circumstance. And that's, it's not like it's gonna be forever, but it is on the one-off days that City Hall may be closed, that employees, not necessarily department heads, but employees would have to use their time.
We're not looking at retroing this, are we? We're looking at
No,
this point forward, correct?
correct.
I think if
I
it's
mean,
that, I haven't spoken yet, but I know that City Hall leaks air like a sieve. If somebody is not feeling well, we don't want anybody we've already made it clear that we don't want people to remote in on a daily pandemic type of basis. But the smoke did create a special hazard. And I personally felt that if somebody was not feeling well at work, then that should be one of those very, very few exceptions. And we don't want our employees to be bitter about having to use their time up as well. But on the same token, it should be left to the department heads to some degree. If they think that they should be able to allow their employee to go home for a day or a few hours because it's gotten worse, then I think that we should left it to department head to determine that.
okay. Yeah, it's just like, I mean, for example, what's going on right now? I mean, it's not going to last forever. We've got a forecast that good air's coming, but until then, that's my point, and that's my fight for the employees.
All right, my stance still stands. I don't want to sound callous, but that's what paid time and vacation and or PTO and or sick leave is for. I don't know what else to say on that one. We're looking at
Okay.
maybe a few more days. From what I read, within a few days, it should be cleared out anyhow. It's a once in a blue moon, hopefully never happens again.
Right?
Better not. But at the same time, I agree with you. I'm working from home and I've got a headache all the time here because my old house is drafty as well. It's just, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I can empathize. Screw that. I can sympathize because I'm in that position myself. And I've had massive headaches for the last week. So I completely agree. That's one of the reasons why we made the call to shut down it and let you guys telecommute in and until this air cleaned up.
And that is very appreciated, by the way.
And that's just my point. I don't know how we actually got down this. Was I think we're still on the administrative report out here.
Well, that's correct. So I'm hearing a consensus that we're the ones that are unable to remote in, they need to take their vacation, sick leave, or comp time, or whatever leave they have. That's what I'm hearing.
That's what you're hearing. I don't think you necessarily have consensus, but that's what you're hearing from the council.
Or a majority.
Yeah. Now here's a question for you, and this is something that we can talk about later. My wife's work, Salem Hospital, when individuals do not have comp time or accrual time, they actually allow employees to donate time over to them in terms of hours and so forth. So has anyone at the city, have the city department heads ever done that or offered that to see so-and-so's got a lot of hours? Maybe they want to give some over to so-and-so to allow them to have pay?
We do have that in our policy, but it's for special circumstances.
Which is what we're in.
It doesn't pertain to inclement weather. It's more of a medical type thing.
Which is kind of what we're in though.
Well, this is more emergency inclement. It's a one-off thing.
Okay, I was just saying, if there's that opportunity, maybe city department heads or employees would be willing to donate hours to help. Vicky, anything else on your report?
Not unless you guys have any questions.
Just thank you for getting the live streaming up. I'm doing like a fist bump.
Yay! I'm hoping it's working.
So do I. I guess we'll find out later. Counselors, any questions for Vicky?
From
No.
Dodge.
None from
Move
James.
on to finance report.
Okay, I have one thing to add to my report, and the auditors sent in their draft proposal, and I'm reviewing that currently, and that should be taken care of. So the audit went very well, and I'm going to get with Vicky hopefully tomorrow morning or sometime this week to see if she has any concerns, because she was copied on that draft too. We've got 4 employees over their vacation accrual, but of course we have until December 31st to get those down. And each department has a plan to get those down. I did want to bring up the utility billings because there was an issue with the transportation rates resolution, and it brought up a 12-cent increase to the bills that we were not going to increase per the budget committee and city council. So I need to get, staff needs direction from council to either keep the current increase of 12 cents per billing cycle or adjust the static water pressure fee down 12 cents to keep it at the rates that were there last year.
May I chime in? You guys adopt the, or renew the transportation fee about the same time that you do SDCs because they're based on the building index, the ENR index. So when you made that decision on the sewer water rates, you had already adopted the transportation fee.
Okay, but I think going back to what Judy's saying is, Judy, thank you for finding the discrepancy on this particular one. And I think the letter of what we were looking to try to do was, yes, to keep that fee flat. Honestly, 12 cents, I'm not going to lose absolutely any sleep over it. I mean, yeah, my wife saw it and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I think it's going to cost us more than 12 cents to go through and fix it, probably in just terms of your time and hours. But that's just my thought. Councilor Rodriguez, what do you think?
I agree. If it's 12 cents, I mean, we tried to say we're gonna flatline that tax, but we did already lower it. And there's gonna be a lot of fees that are gonna be different, in my opinion, this coming year due to the fact that people aren't driving, you know, the fuel tax, all that stuff. So I would say we just keep the 12 cents as is.
Councilor Thomas?
Yeah, it wouldn't be cost effective to go through it. So I say just leave as is.
Councilor Dodge?
I agree, leave as is.
King, Councilor Prinsloo?
Leave it as is, please.
There you go. Yeah, you have complete consensus. Just leave it.
Okay, and I also wanted to have on record that Vicky was the one who found that. We forgot that while we were doing that. And so thank you, Vicky, for that.
That's why we have excellent teamwork. I mean, I want to say that I like the fact that we have checks and balances in lots of different areas, and that's how we just keep things up on the up. So thank you, both of you.
And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the Corona Relief Fund through the CARES Act that we got reimbursed at $17,000 so far. We also have until December 31st, and I need to email council what I found regarding that. So if we're at $50,000 or more on that reimbursement for the Corona Relief Fund, we will be eligible for a federal audit on how we utilize those funds. So in my report, I let you know that that I requested from departments who ordered computer equipment for remoting in, that I needed an inventory list on that. And I'm working with the departments on getting that, but anything that we use for that, we could potentially be federally audited on. So I did want to alert council to that, and I will be emailing the regulations and guidelines that I was just notified about, okay?
Thank you for keeping us updated on that.
Yeah, and unless there's any other questions, I'll close finance.
Okay, it looks like Audrish has got a thumbs up. Thomas, any questions?
No questions.
Sheldon? Councilor Dodge?
No question.
Councilor Prinsloo?
No questions.
Right, let's jump into monthly report for Public Works. Mike?
Yes, you've got my report in front of you. The one item that didn't get on here because it came in too late to make the deadline is the cost estimate for the upgrades to the water plant. And the one thing that I noticed as reading through that there again, caught it too late to make any changes, is they didn't add to it the cost of the engineering that would be required to get everything done. So I did ask Matt, and he said that would be about $250,000. But on the backside, they added on a generator set that we don't need because we've already got one.
So do you think we'll be ready to have a more in-depth discussion on this then next month?
Yeah,
Okay. If it's okay with council, I would like to have that discussion then. Because I would definitely like to dig into it. I saw the numbers. Actually, I was pleasantly surprised it wasn't as much as I was fearing it was going to come in. So
no, I thought myself it was rather reasonable.
yeah, I thought it was like, wow, this is cheap in many ways for what we were looking to do. A question for you on item number 1. I love hearing the splash speak now, right? Splash fountain on. I'm assuming though, with temperatures now dipping below the 70s, are you planning just to go ahead and shut it down since we are past Labor Day? We probably shouldn't have kids out there playing in the smoke anyways, and maybe just go ahead and get it winterized.
Well, I was actually planning on leaving it open until the end of the month, unless, of course, the rains roll in or it starts dropping below a reasonable temperature, which it has recently, but that's due to the smoke.
Okay.
I haven't seen a whole lot of kids in it playing recently because of the smoke, so I'll keep an eye on it. I am on vacation right now, so.
Yeah.
I'll keep an eye on it. If it's being unused at this time, I'll just have the guys shut it down.
Okay. On item number 4, I did talk with Gayla. Her husband, by the way, got hurt, can't actually build the library boxes. When I talked with her, I said, that's fine. I actually know how to use a hammer and a saw. So I will be the one putting those together. I assume one will be obviously put in over at Rivenus Park. So that's great. But Mike, when you get back from vacation, I'd love to chat with you about where you believe the position over by the laundromat might be. So I can at least make sure that whatever's built is weatherized to withstand that.
Okay, the location that we looked at when I went out with Gayla was over in the southeast corner of the laundromat in that barked area.
Okay. So as soon as you get back, I will bug you one day. We'll just go down during lunch and you can show me.
Okay.
If I can get a visual, I know exactly what I got to put there.
Okay, and the other one that we had talked about, due to the weatherization or the weather concerns and camera concerns, we were thinking about putting the library on the left side of where the drinking fountain is on the face of Revenus Park and the bench on the left side.
That works. Do you need to have it on a stand or you plan to use mounting bolts to mount it against the wall?
I would prefer to have it on a stand, but yes, we will also mount it onto the building. That way nobody runs away with it.
All right, I'll go down and take measurements. But great. I hope to have those built this weekend. Weather permitting. So
That old lady again. That's an airbag.
also item number 6, completely don't disagree with any of that. It'd be great. Who's going to fund that? Are they looking to fund that?
They said that they would help with the fundraising, but I don't know if that would be enough to do what we want to do. And I guess
Go ahead.
That's just one of the issues that we're talking about. Do we want to replace the hedge? Do we want to go with a white vinyl picket fence? Do we want to go with a wooden fence? What do we want to do there?
So I had some concerns regarding that because are you talking about the hedge that is both on 8 and 99?
Yes.
Because my thoughts were that hedge is pretty thick on 99. If some cars got into an accident and we only had a fence and there were kids or any people that were in that park, I think there's more likely to be some injuries if a car goes through a fence than if it goes through a hedge.
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but it makes sense.
Your thoughts, Councilor Rodrish? Looks like you're getting ready to talk.
A fence is basically just a notation of a perimeter. A hedge isn't gonna, a hedge also, again, like a fence, deters people from leaving or kids from going beyond that area. I would say whatever's least expensive and easiest to do and easiest to maintain.
Councilor Prinsloo, what's your thoughts?
I'm on the opinion that if the hedge is in good condition, why replace it? I don't see where putting in a fence is going to be advantageous at all. And there is that cost.
There is a cost, yep.
Well,
Councilor Thomas?
the concern that the Kalinskis had is the hedge is dying. It's been up for, well, since that park was put in what, 91? So you've got big sections of it that have already died and already need to be taken out. I guess we could try to replant those few sections, but what I'm afraid of is then you'll have other sections of that fence or that hedge that does the same thing. What I was looking at was vinyl. Unfortunately, vinyl is very expensive, but it lasts for a very long time, and the maintenance on it is a whole lot less than, say, wood or even the hedge itself, because the hedge, we got to spend 4 or 5 hours a couple of times a year trimming it.
I think, can I mention something? Just a
Of course you
thought. I wasn't here when the park was put in or when the hedge was put in, but on the land use point, that a lot of times the hedges or shrubbery is put in for sound, the sound barrier. So I don't know, how much that hedge, sucks up some of the sound from the highway for those houses that are right there on First Street. Just throwing that out there.
I don't believe that it does all that much for the sound dampening, because it's only 3 foot high.
Part of me agrees with what Prinsloo was saying. That's the cost. We're already spending a lot this year on different projects. I think if it could be fundraised, I personally don't care. I'm just worried about the city taking on that additional cost. Because a vinyl fence could be expensive, or a wood fence.
But this wouldn't be something we'd do this year. It would be put off until next year, and then we could see what the fundraising looks like.
I guess, to me, I don't care if we could fundraise for all the material and get volunteers to go out and do it.
Okay.
I mean, that's my thought, but I'm only one on the council here. Does anyone disagree with that?
Let's put it this way. Let's start, if they're willing to help with the fundraising, let them start with the fundraising, and we'll have this discussion in, say, May.
That works for me. Does that work for everyone else?
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's fine.
Anything else? Any other questions for Mike? I've
Well,
asked other questions.
I've got one more point to make, as you probably well know, and thank you, Councilor Prinsloo, for giving us a call, because if you hadn't have gone by and seen that tank overfilling, it would have been several hours longer before anybody caught it. So thank you very much for making that call. It's one of those issues that because it was operator error, we are going to get our hands slapped by DEQ. There will be a fine at some point for this. At this time, we don't know how much that's going to be. But on the backside, we are taking some steps that will help prevent this next time. We are buying a float device, a device that is independent of anything else that we have there at the city. So if the float goes up, it'll radio out to a communication center, and the communication center will call us.
All right, Robert, thank you, by the way, for finding that. I do recall that message, and thank goodness you stopped by and saw it.
Nothing better to do at 3:30 in the morning.
I don't know. I don't even know why you're out that early, but
Robert, you have such a nose for that type of thing.
oh, okay. Don't make a
So any
stink
more
about this,
questions?
James. Don't make a stink about this. Any other questions for Mike on Public Works?
No questions, but I was going to tell you, Mike, I called ODOT as well about the fir tree on and 99 going north. And they said, oh yeah, we'll get somebody over there to take care of it. So I'm glad to see we're both getting the same result.
Yeah, the 3 times that I do it. What I think I'm going to do is make it a point that somebody out of our department calls them once a week until it gets done.
That sounds like a good idea.
One fir tree that they want to have cut back.
Okay, actually, looking at the agenda, Mike, it looks like we've already covered topics 9 and 10, but we did not discuss the flags on pedestrian crossings.
Right.
So, by the way, I just a couple of weeks ago, I noticed that Aurora put those in. So I sent the link over to Melinda and said, hey, what's the possibilities of putting this in some of the more, heavily crossed or trafficked areas? She posted a thing on Facebook. She got, looks like 2 responses. The other response wants us to put more things in like we've got bound by the post office, which that'd be an expensive option. I'd love to have those everywhere, but they're expensive. But generally speaking, it looks like for $200, we can put them at, how many crossings can we put flags at for that?
Actually, I think if Melinda's still on, I'll let her speak to this because this is one of her projects.
Oh, Melinda is on. I was hoping she would be away taking care of family business or taking care of herself.
So that would depend on how many of the flags you actually want in each of the baskets. But with 50, you could probably, if you put 5 flags in each basket, so a total of 10 for each intersection of where you're going to have them, then you could do 5 locations for that.
So it's like $200. I guess my question to council, do you see value in doing this? And I can go around and just ask for your opinion, and we'll start with Councilor Prinsloo.
I have no problem if there's a consensus. I just wonder about the effectiveness of this. I've seen it in other cities and I don't see it as being very effective.
I haven't seen them actually used in Aurora yet, so. Councilor Thomas?
I always think back to when they do the pedestrian safety and, as Robert could probably speak to, they put people out there with bright orange vests on and people still drive through the crosswalk when people are out there with a bright orange vest on. So I don't think that the flag is going to make a difference. I like the idea, but I don't think it's going to deter people from driving through a crosswalk when there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk.
Okay. Councilor Dodge?
I like the idea. I've seen it work very well in Sisters, Oregon. I think I did see somebody the other day in Aurora use it, but as long as they're utilized, I think it could be done. Are we going to have some people who go through crosswalks regardless? Yes, because it's like they roll through stop signs. So, but I think it's a good start of being safe because even the one that's at the post office right now with the lights, people don't use it. They don't press the button. They just still go across the crosswalk. So.
Okay, what about Councilor Aldrich?
Councilor Dodge is right. I've been through Sisters a few times and it does kind of beautify the town as long as, they're there. It could give a false sense of security if somebody's holding the flag, assuming everybody's going to stop. But I don't think it's here nor there to me. If the consensus is we do it, then we'll do it, and we as council members will support it.
Well, it's hard to get consensus. I have two that are non-committal. One's like,
Well, my thinking is, why don't we try it on, say, one corner first?
makes sense.
Buy them individually. That way, instead of $200, you're spending $25 or $30. And where I would be thinking about doing it would be at that the corner at Revenants Park on D and 5th.
That'd make my suggestion. I'd be fine with us giving it a pilot. Robert, you fine with a pilot?
That would be fine with me. Or just want to make sure we're going to put a receptacle on both sides of the intersection.
Yeah, otherwise they're gonna just throw them down.
Yeah, we will. We'll find something high tech like a coffee can or something.
Folgers, there you go.
Yep. Hook it
Councilor Thomas?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to have a test site. I'm in favor.
Okay, and then I'm assuming Michelle and Audrey, you guys are fine with the test site.
Yes.
Okay, there's your consensus.
Okay, we'll give it a run and see what happens.
Great. Any other questions for Mike or Public Works? Okay, let's move on to consent agenda. We had no request to pull anything out, so I'll go ahead and read the titles. A, approval of minutes, July 14th, 2020, City Council. August 11th, 2020, City Council. August 25th, 2020, Special City Council. B, approval of the August 2020 check register report. C, approval of annual step increase for Julie Hayden, Administrative Assistant Court Clerk, to Step D of the Hubbard salary schedule effective September 16th, 2020. Approval of Edward Bren Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program in the amount of $24,999,000 and authorize the mayor to sign. E, approval to remove Grant Thoman, police officer, from probation, and to Step B of the Hubbard salary schedule effective September 1st, 2020. Can I get a motion?
A motion to approve consent agenda as read.
I second that.
Okay, I heard the second come from Michelle Dodge first. Sorry, James, you were slow on
That's
the mute. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, Vicky, consent agenda is approved unanimously. Appearance, do we have any citizens online that would like to speak? I think it's just us. So we'll move right through 12, other city business. Okay, if not, council recesses open public meeting and convenes closed executive session to review and evaluate employee-related performance or employees under ORS 1926602I pursuant to ORS 1926604. Council specifically requests that members of the media and other attendees not disclose matters discussed in the executive session. Vicky, my question for you, do we need to stop the live stream at this point? Vicky?
I'm sorry, I'm sitting here talking. Yes, I need to pause the recording and I'm trying to pause the